Back in the mid-40s, the workers at major meatpacking companies won a system of national bargaining from their employers. We needed uniform contracts with Canada Packers, Burns, and Swift Chains to cover all of us, because hogs and cattle could be slaughtered and processed in one place and shipped anywhere across the country. Till 1984, the packing house companies accepted national bargaining with our union. This made sure that no one company would get an unfair advantage from lower wages. The work in the meatpacking industry is hard. Sometimes you have to go from cold freezers to smokehouses. It's mostly assembly line work. I've got a disabled arm from the repetitious job I do from making boxes. By 1982, meat consumption fell drastically due to high prices and generally falling wages. We now have a situation where there are too many packing houses and too few livestock. Since 1975, the companies reacted by closing over 30 plants and permanently laying off some 7,000 workers. They also broke the national bargaining system. In 1984, Burns even went so far as to demand negotiations be made local by local, and the labor boards of 3 provinces gave it to them. But Gainers was the worst of them all. Peter Pocklington cried poverty and demanded concessions, and when we threatened to go on strike, he lined 1,000 scabs outside our plant to take our jobs. In the end, we decided to bite the bullet and voted 52% to take the concessions.
The employers in both Red Deer and Edmonton used that economic downturn to force their employees to give back certain provisions that had existed in the collective agreement for many years. And I stress the fact there was never any economic evidence that those employers needed givebacks in those years. But they took advantage of the downturn in the Alberta economy to extract concessions from their employees in respect to starting rates, in respect to areas like statutory holidays, hospital areas, hospital coverage, and those kinds of areas. And it's the loss of those things in the 1984 negotiations in Alberta that's brought about this fight in Alberta in 1986.
Negotiations with Gainers. There has never been any negotiations with this union with Gainers. Any negotiations we've ever had with Gainers have been ultimatums. This company has refused to negotiate with this union ever since the company bought the plant.
I worked for Gainers for 35 years, and the Gainer people treated me real well. And when they changed over, you could see a big difference. Well, the company here won't talk.
No?
No, they want to get rid of the union, as far as I'm concerned. And we just are not standing for that. We worked hard to get what we got, and we'd like to keep it.
I've been working for Gainers about a month. I picked it up as a summer job. I was going to the University of Alberta here. And, well, it seemed like good money at the time, $7 an hour, but I find now I don't even break even, and I got to work like a booger all the time, eh?
In Alberta, labor laws allow non-union workers to take jobs of striking workers after 24 hours. This provokes violence when strikers see other people taking their jobs. The company jumps on the violence and gets a court injunction to restrict picketing instead of going to the Labor Relations Board, which might help to reach an agreement. This is what Gainers did. They are trying to bust the union, not get a settlement. It's a growing trend.
So from a strategic point of view, the history of injunctions in Canada, as summarized by many authors and by the case authorities, has been used as a very successful tool by employers if their method or strategy is to break a union. It's been used very successfully in that regard. Or if their strategy is to certainly limit any activity at their operations, they've been very successful in doing that.
You know, Pocklington's one-man, but what we're fighting here is an attitude, you know, and if guys see that he can win, they're going to try the same thing too. I think people got to start asking themselves is every time there's a labor dispute, if they want another Gainers on their hands, then leave the labor legislation the way it is. And if they don't want this to be occurring repeatedly, with 300 policemen having to come out every morning, things are going to have to change. We have the right to strike, they have the right to limit pickets and to hire scab labor. That means nobody really has any rights at all. But whose rights are being taken away by the police, not the companies?
Because some guys are mean, it looks like they're out there looking for something to happen, so they can start beating on people. Like yesterday was bad.
Like, I mean, a lot of women got beat, like, were hit with their clubs, you know. Like, let's face it, we're not criminals. We're fighting for a cause, and a very good cause.
The guy that was pointing people out came and pointed me out, and there was about 3 or 4 of them that grabbed me, and then they...
3 or 4 of them grabbed you?
Mm-hmm. I asked them why later, and they said because a couple of girls had kicked them.
Oh.
Because I said, did it look like I was going to start beating people up or what?
Yeah, she looks like she was
and
really
then
a killer, doesn't she?
A police said to me when I asked him that, he says, well, maybe they were just all grabbing for you. So, make me nervous.
In contrast to the situation in Gaynors, Fletcher's and Red Deer settled. What did the workers of Fletcher's get?
Well, Fletcher's achieved parity in the meat industry, and when we talk about parity, we're talking about benefits and wages comparable to the other meat packers in Canada, and we have achieved that with Fletcher's.
A court injunction forced the Fletcher strikers to set up their strike headquarters half a mile from the plant.
If there wasn't a law that allows scabs in the plants, there'd be no violence, and the strikes wouldn't last as long. And
people wouldn't get hurt.
Yeah.
People have been hurt?
Well, there's been a bus drove over 3 of our men. So that should have never happened.
How are those people?
A few scabs got beat
They'll
up.
probably be sore for a long time, like they're still in the hospital. Not in very good shape. So they're going to have to be covered probably for the rest of their lives.
But the next thing I knew, the log was getting pushed up my legs too. The log wasn't rolling. It was moving, but it wasn't rolling, so it was stationary. The bus was just driving it forward, and we were in front. Therefore, it wasn't rolled on our legs. It was just ground up our legs, eh? It was incredible pain. We were both yelling and screaming. The bus driver must have been able to see us, because we were just right there. And he kept driving. He pushed us for 15 to 20 feet.
They could probably make me walk again, but I know I'll always have problems with this foot. And the way it was mutilated, it's pretty hard to even, it's hard to believe I even got to keep it, actually. You know, it's gonna always bother me for the rest of my life. Probably arthritis, you know. It's gonna be pretty gross. I'll be lucky if I don't limp. That's the way I look at it. I was lucky to keep my foot. But as far as Fletcher's is concerned, I hope they, you know, I hope they're happy that they've been able to hurt people like this. It's pretty sick.
Fletcher settled primarily because of the pressure we put on them by using the Vancouver plant as a lever, because we had strike notice there, and we said we'd pull that plant down as well if they didn't settle. One of the other main reasons for them settling is they wanted to divorce themselves completely from Peter Pocklington.
My husband was one of the people who was arrested on the first day. My son came home from school and said, "Mommy, my teacher saw you in the newspaper." Another one said, "Well, my teacher saw you on TV. Why? Why are you on TV? Why are you in the newspaper?" We had to sit down and explain. Our children are 5, 8, and 9. And we had to explain to them, "Well, sweetie, Daddy got arrested today. Were you doing something bad?" "No, I wasn't doing something bad." "Well, Daddy, the police don't pick up people if they're bad, if they're not bad. Why did they pick you up?" And we had to go through the whole thing, what the fight is about, why we're out here. But I can't stop what I'm doing, because if we lose this here fight, then when I put them to bed and the weekend comes and whatnot, there's nothing there. The finances are gone. You can't do sweet tweet.
A one-man inquiry board has just recently come out with its recommendations. Could you tell us what these recommendations are and what you think about the recommendations?
Well, our position is that there are shortfalls, serious shortfalls, in the recommendations from the Commissioner, and those matters will have to be addressed before this dispute can be resolved.
Let me tell you, it's a great feeling to be a union man in Alberta this morning. Today we embark on a drive to bring human and civil rights back to the working people of Alberta. The working men and women of our union will never be driven from their cause, because it is a just cause. Their sticks may change the outside of our bodies, but they'll never change the inside of our bodies.
If Mr. Getty brings in amendments which prohibit the hiring of alternative labor during strikes, if he brings in laws that will eliminate the desperation of workers on the picket lines, that will put an end to picket line violence, that will put an end to the use of injunctions which undermine respect for the law, if he does those things, then he will bring respect to the office of Premier which he now holds. But I also want to tell him that there are not enough policemen, there are not enough lawyers, there are not enough judges, and there are not enough jails to hold us all, and we are going to have justice.
Until the law is changed, I am calling on the labor movement across this country to stand firm and solid in their commitment with you. I am asking the labor movement here also to keep the picket lines on these places that we have out on strike. A week ago, brothers and sisters, the federal government unveiled a historic plaque commemorating the Winnipeg General Strike of 1919. And in that most famous of all Canadian strikes, the forces of the employer, the police force, and the courts were used to crush the Winnipeg workers' fight for economic and social justice. And looking at the media coverage of the Gaynor strike and others, I ask myself just what lessons our governments and employers have learned. They haven't learned one damn thing. Not one thing. We're the laughingstock of the international scene about all of this. We have the right. We proceeded through the normal process of collective bargaining, through the democratic legal process, and here we are. We have people beating us up on picket lines and bringing in these riot teams and all the rest of it. It's happening. It happened in Newfoundland. You saw it. It's happening up north. It happened in British Columbia. Where's the next step? It's nonsense in 1986 to have workers subjected to this kind of terrorism. Peter Pocklington talks about terrorists. He's the one that has instigated this. He's the terrorist.
It so happens that the members of the United Food and Commercial Workers are the focal point of this resurrection in Alberta. We welcome that. We have a strong union that can take whatever it is they want to dish out and come back for more. We welcome all of you here to come now and join us in this cause for economic correction, for legislative rights, and this fight must go on and on. It cannot end. It will not end when Pocklington ends, because the people who occupy the House, on whose front lawn we stand, have a different agenda in life than you and I, and we've got to either change their agenda or change the occupants of that House.
With the strength of our union, the United Food and Commercial Workers, we're going to win. You can jail the strikers, but you can't jail the strike.
Well, I could go on for 10 years, but nobody's going to give up.
And I do have a lot of faith, yeah. I do believe we're going to win.
We will have a national boycott put on his factory and the goods that he produces there.
We got a lot of support from all over the country, and hopefully we can make it.
Yeah, I'd probably go back on the line, but I'd just make sure I stayed away from... I'd make sure I didn't get ran over the next time.
I don't know if you can put a time as to how long people can last. I think that the majority of the people, considering what they lost 2 years ago and what we're fighting for now, will stick it out as long as it takes.
And you think you're going to win?
I know we're going to win.